What is a strange experience you've had that no one believes when you tell them? Friends called me while I was just chilling at home, wanted me to come over and play poker. I got dressed real quick and got in the car. I went to the gas station and got a soda and 6-pack of beer. Then I drove to my friend's house. The whole trip was maybe 20 minutes. When I get to my friend's house, it looks like they're cleaning up. I asked what's going on. They said they was waiting for me, and because I was taking so long, they went ahead and played. I said you only called me about 20 minutes ago. They then informed me they called me over 3 hours ago. I looked at my phone and sure enough it was 3 hours later. I have no clue what happened.
Sounds just like what happened to someone I know. She went to the bathroom at the airport in the afternoon. Swears it took 2 minutes, nothing strange happened, and she can account for everything she did in there. But as she walked out, the terminal was empty except for some flight attendants packing up at one of the counters. The airport was closing, she'd been in there for 3 hours and missed her flight.
I swear on my life that when I was in 4th grade, me and one of my best friends saw a plane go down, burning from the engines, a kilometer or so away from the school. It's such a vivid memory, and I remember going to the spot it supposedly crashed after school, but found nothing. There are no records of it happening, and when we checked there was nothing there. But still, how could 2 people imagine the exact same thing at the same time? It just doesn't make sense to me at all.
I was trying to ride a bicycle, alone. Suddenly I couldn't move forward, it was like someone pulled my bicycle from behind. I thought it might be my neighbor or friend because I heard a laugh. When I looked back, totally calm and expected to see my friend, there was no one. Literally no one. Double-checked before I took to my heels.
We had just picked up some fast food, and we were on a fairly isolated road, in a small town in the Mojave Desert in California. There was a very bright light and a really strong vibration completely surrounded our vehicle. When we looked at each other, we were parked on the shoulder of the road. I said, "Wow, that was weird." My buddy said, "My Coke is warm." We checked our watches and nearly an hour had passed since we went out for food. And the ice had melted. To this day it's the strangest thing that's ever happened to me.
About a decade ago I woke up around 3 a.m., and there was a soft blue glowing light on my right next to my neck. I was laying down in bed, and whatever it was resting on my pillow. When I zeroed in on it, it looked at me and ran down my bed, up the wall and through the crack of the double doors leading to the backyard. I don't know what it was. It looked like a crab. I lived on the beach. People always tell me I was hallucinating or in a half-dream, or half-awake state. They're probably right, but honestly I felt wide awake during the whole experience. I don't think much of it except that I'll probably never know the truth. I'm okay with that.
When I was a kid, I seen a UFO. I wasn't the only one that seen it, there was a group of us, but when it's come up over the years, I see the glazed over look develop on people's eyes. I am always careful never to speculate on what it was, and just tell the story as it happened, but people just seem to think you're lying automatically. Regardless of people's reaction to it, I've been completely fascinated with them ever since.
I often hear people call my name about an hour or so before they call me with bad news. Or bad news about them. The first one I can remember was my mum's mother's voice, waking me out of a sound sleep as a preteen. Later that day we got the news she passed. While I was away at college, my dad's voice yelling at me started me awake. Later on I got a collect call from him, telling me my childhood home was struck by lightning and burnt down, and my cat was missing. We found her, she hid. It's always the same, their voice calling my name sharply. Like I'm a kid in trouble. I hate it.
During a holiday in Vietnam, my family and I went on a tour of the Cu Chi tunnels. As the tour guide led the group through a network of tunnels, I saw a couple heading the wrong way. I called out to them saying so, but they did not turn around. When we got out of the tunnels, I told the tour guide about the couple, and he said no one could have gone that way because there was no other way out.
Here in Brazil, it often used to be the case that if a person was ill or suspected to be cursed, she would be taken to a so-called benzedeiro, or benzedira if a woman, who is sort of a folk healer that would then say prayers and do some other voodoo stuff while joggling a sprig of rue toward the patient. When I was about 11 years old, my grandmother took me to one of those in the hopes of healing my right shin, which was entirely covered with warts. Now, I'm not religious, and I consider myself a fairly skeptic person, and I remember already thinking at that time, as a kid, that that was a stupid idea. But anyway, we go there, he does his juju, 5 minutes later we head back home. The next day, all warts had almost disappeared, they'd become smaller lumps, as if they were cut in half. The day after, they were totally gone. I still have no idea what happened. Although I heard that rue is good for treating warts, I doubt it has so strong an effect, given that he didn't even touch my shin with it, just gently bumped my forehead. Maybe it was a coincidence and my ailment would have died out at that same time. I don't know. In any case, nobody believes me anyway.
There was a time when I was 9, my mother would sometimes sleep at the backyard of our house, with a bamboo sofa. And I would sleep inside of the house, but somehow I always wake up at dawn. 12 a.m. to 2 a.m., and when I'm awake, I would always wash my face first, then go to my mom and sleep next to her. But one day I saw something in the room full of cutted wood and plywood. I saw a tall woman wearing a white gown, her hair is so long that it completely covered her face and body. The backyard is so dark, that you would trip if you walk without a flashlight. But somehow I could clearly see her. I effing freak out when I see her, and was shouting when I try to wake up my mom, but she didn't wake up. I even strongly shake my mom's body, for 3 minutes to wake her up. But she didn't, then I look back to check the woman and she's closer than before. I calm myself, I close my eyes for 1 hour. Then I check if the woman is still there, but it's gone. I believe that what I saw is a ghost.
Something quite recently happened. I went to the shops to get some groceries for my parents. But when I came back I realized that I had forgotten the front door key, so I had to ring the doorbell. They are elderly, so it does take a while for them to answer the front door. Now this front door is beveled glass, but if you put your face up close to it, you can see indoors fairly clearly. I saw someone walking around the hallway. I peered through the glass and saw my niece, which was a little odd because of COVID lockdown. I pointed to the door handle and told her to open the door, but she wouldn't and just poked her tongue out at me and laughed. So, thinking that she was playing games, I jokingly did the same back. Then she looked up at the stairwell because my mum was making her way down. The niece then quickly moved to one side and stood stock still. When my mum reached the bottom of the stairs, she walked right through what I thought was my niece. I was shocked. The niece turned to look at me and laughed, then vanished. I couldn't believe my own eyes. When I went indoors I checked every room. Nothing.
When I was in the 6th grade, I woke up one night, and there was a lady staring at me at the end of my bed. I don't remember how long I stared back, just that at some point I pulled the covers and closed my eyes. I then woke up the next morning for school, and to this day am not sure if that really happened, or if it was just a hella vivid nightmare.
This one is maybe paranormal, but I don't really know. I was dog sitting for a friend of my dad, and I had dog sat here before, and nothing weird had happened before. This time, however, the house felt different. On the first night, while I was trying to sleep, I hear what sounds like boots coming down the stairs. Terrified and not about to confront whatever is there, I get up, lock the door to the room I am in, and get under the covers. The footsteps get further away, and then I hear the kitchen sink turn on for a few seconds. Then it turns off and the footsteps get closer and closer until I can't hear them because my blood is pounding in my ears so loud it feels like my head will explode. Then I hear a loud bang in the room next to me, and Charlie, the massive dog, starts whimpering. After this I've had enough, because I'm starting to think it's a person. I grab Charlie by the collar and decide we're gonna beat the f out of whatever is terrorizing me. Searched the whole house, even the upstairs, none of my shit was missing, nothing from the house was taken, and nobody was to be found. Gonna be honest, Don't think I'm gonna dog sit there again.
I remember one time when I was about 8 or 9 years old. The neighborhood kids and I were playing freeze tag. We were running all over the place through backyards and across the street. I recall trying to get away from the tagger, and right before I got into the street my legs locked up. I couldn't move my legs, and before I could react a car passed in front of me. If I hadn't stopped right then I would have been hit. I remember the tagger coming up to me and asking what happened. I told him and said I couldn't move my legs. It was like that for a few minutes, but no one believed I was telling the truth. I think something stopped me, but I don't know what it was.
When I was 4 or 5, my mom put my teddy bear in the laundry. But when the dryer was done, it was nowhere to be found. Several hours later I'm alone upstairs watching TV, my parents both downstairs. Suddenly my teddy bear is thrown harshly across the hallway to my right out of nowhere. I'm the only one upstairs to see it. I go and pick it up, and it feels warm and fresh from the dryer, although it being hours since we did laundry. I still have no idea what happened that day.
When I was 6, I woke up from a bad dream and was really scared. I couldn't fall back asleep, so I just laid there. I was fully awake. Then out of nowhere this little angel pops up on the ceiling. She dances and twirls around, and telepathically tells me to just think happy thoughts until I fall asleep. Such as my friends or picking flowers. I rubbed my eyes thinking I was crazy for seeing that. But no matter how hard I rubbed eyes, it didn't go away. So I took her advice, did that, and fell asleep. The next day I ran to my mom and told her what happened. She sort of believed me. So yeah. No one believes me and tries to tell me that I just imagined it cause I was a kid. But it wasn't. It was real. And I know you, whoever is reading this, doesn't believe me unless you hang out in r/psychic, but it was real.
I lived in a 100-year-old house, in the middle of some old farmland. Closest neighbor was a mile away kinda place. Anyway, the house was haunted. During remodeling, my mom took pictures of her progress. There were those orbs you see in ghost shows, all around the house, particularly in my bedroom. It wasn't awful or anything. We'd hear footsteps in the hall at night, and that was the most of it. Well, one particular night, I was in my bed under my blanket. I felt like I was being watched. I couldn't sleep, and something wasn't right. I just closed my eyes and tried to ignore the feeling. Well, for some reason, I felt like a weight was slowly being lifted from me. It was so slow that I didn't feel anything physically moving, but it felt like my blanket wasn't there anymore. I opened my eyes and looked up, and my blanket was floating like someone was pinching it with 2 fingers and lifting it up. It was probably lifted about 4 feet, and as soon as I looked it dropped back onto me. I didn't sleep that night, and no one really believed me the next day. I don't care if people do or not, I know it happened and it was creepy as hell.
A few months ago I was traveling in Egypt at the pyramids. It was middle of the afternoon, not many people around, and I was traveling solo. I had a tripod and was framing a shot with a scarf on my head. Sort of covered the camera as well while I was looking at the screen. I had at least 100 meters each side around me, where I didn't have any person. And I think I took maybe 30 seconds to frame the shot. I popped my head out, rolled down the scarf, and boom. There is a beautiful young girl standing next to me. She looked Arabic, maybe from Turkey. But was surely not a local 'cause of her style of dressing. Boots, blue denim skirt, white top. I got startled and scared for 1 second, looked around if there was anyone else too. There was no one else. This girl didn't have a bag, purse, camera, scarf, nothing. To be less weird, I tried to make a conversation and asked hello? Hi? Can you please help me click a photo? She looks at me and moves her right hand to her lower lip/chin and strikes a thinking pose while looking away to the pyramids. Now I am even more confused as to what to do next. Then she takes her hand and points in the blank space between 2 pyramids and does the thinking gesture again. She hasn't spoken a word till now. I ask her, I am not sure, do you speak English? She points towards the blank space between pyramids again, This time she holds her pose while she points for almost 15 seconds. All this is happening while she is half meter away from me. I take a step back and ask her, "Are you okay?" She snaps back from the pose she was holding, takes a step towards me, as if charging, and widens her eyes as if to show that she was so angry. Now I was totally freaked out, but I stood my ground. She kept staring in my eyes for maybe 15 to 20 more seconds straight. I didn't move and stared right back. Then she turned around and walked away, really fast. I quickly folded my camera equipment and tripod, tried to follow her with a safe distance to see if she was with a group, out of curiosity. I lost her in the crowd after 5 minutes, not kidding, but if she had to tell me that she was spirit or something, I would have believed. Of course, this was very strange experience.
I grew up in Northern California. On 80 acres in the mountains. One summer evening around 6:30. I was walking up our dirt road, and all of a sudden I heard something in the woods. I stopped and looked up and saw what I 100% know was Bigfoot. He was taking long strides through the forest but was really quiet for the most part. I saw it take about 4 strides and I ran in the opposite direction. I spent 10 years on that mountain and had never seen it again. Absolutely no one believes me, which is fine. I know what I saw.
I hate telling people about it, honestly, because no one will ever believe me. But I think about it weekly. Driving home one night about 2 a.m., my usual route. I come around a bend in the road and notice a weird blinking light, similar or something you'd see on a radio tower. That particular area did not have any radio towers, so I was confused. It was a very residential area. Houses and neighborhoods everywhere. Getting closer, I realized that hovering over the church was a massive airship. I was so flabbergasted at seeing it I stopped my car in the middle of the road to stare at it. I thought the church was doing some weird religious Jesus nonsense, about going to heaven or something. Because it looked sort of like a blimp, but had these massive vents at the bottom that was flooding the front of the church with light. And that light was at the top blinking rapidly between green, white and red. It wasn't rhythmic at all. I'm like, I gotta get a picture of this. So I tried to turn my car around to get into the parking lot so I could get my DSLR camera out of the trunk. At the time my cell phone was a BlackBerry, and it was the middle of the night, so any photo was going to look like a smudge. As I'm making the turnaround in the middle of the road, the thing starts floating toward my car. It had no noise and I had my windows down because it was summer. Then without warning it shot off into the sky. Completely vanished. To this day, I hate I didn't bother to take a pic on my cell phone, because then I would have something. I get the look if I talk about it. You know the one? Raised eyebrows and pursed lips with that side-eye stare. This wasn't a light in the sky, or a weird shape in the distance. I saw it up close. Close enough for it to stop me dead in my tracks. There was no weird feelings or missing time or radio interference or weird marks on my body afterwards. I saw it and then it vanished and that was it. I am not a sky watcher or even invest my time heavily in UFOs before that or even since. And I don't have any significant mental health issues that would cause this kind of random massive hallucination.
It was when I was about 10 years old. I was left home with my dad, but he went out to the local Pack and Save to go buy some stuff for dinner and a few fizzy drinks. My mum was at work and would be returning in 2 hours' time. I was in my room, playing on my Nintendo DS when I heard the front door open. It was my mum, but my mum was working. It didn't make sense. So I went downstairs to go greet my mum to see if it was really her. I didn't think much of it at the time, but it was pretty stupid of me. She said hello to me and gave me a hug. Suddenly all the hairs on my body stood up. She had a different kinda aura, if that makes sense. I knew immediately that it was not my mum, so I made up an excuse and went straight to my room. Then, she started knocking, well, more like banging, but you get the point. On my locked bedroom door. And at this point, I'm shitting bricks, this is scary as F. But then the banging stops. My dad's returned home. So I cautiously walk out and she's gone. I told him what happened, but he didn't believe me. Looking back on it, not going to lie, kinda scary still. Sorry if this sounds fake, but it was real.
Thanks for watching. If you have any stories you want to share, please write them in the comments below. And if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, so you don't miss out on more videos like this.